Today is my mum and dad's 50th wedding anniversary. So 50 years ago today, they were getting married. And after marriage comes kids. When a baby is born, we often think about what they have ahead of them in their lives. We hope for the very best for them. We dream of all of the things that they're going to be. I know the stereotypical way of thinking of that is, are they going to be a doctor or a lawyer? Some people just hope for all of the happiness for them and that they live happy and fulfilled lives. But if you're like me and you're born disabled, those dreams are sucked away. Sucked away by well-meaning medical teams who, in my case, told my parents I would never walk, never talk, never go to school or pass an exam, never be able to drive. All things that I think don't pass most parents' minds when their baby is born. I also had an older sister with the same condition. Martina had lived in a world where there was no legal protections. But she was 9 years older than me, so she had a lot to teach me. We spent a lot of time together when we were young, and a lot of that consisted of her teaching me that we had to make the world work for us. I remember when we would go to the shop, and there would be a staff at the front door. So she and I couldn't go into the shop. But she patiently explained to me that our other two sisters, who had 2 feet that worked, would go into the shop and pick things up for us and bring them to the door, so we could still buy what we wanted from the shop. She also patiently explained to me that when someone said, "What's wrong with you?" that there was nothing wrong with them. They simply hadn't met anyone like me before, or like her. And it was okay to simply reply, "My legs don't work." But even from then, Martina taught me so much. In fact, I was also born deaf. I was born with no ears, and when Martina was told, she very simply replies, "Well, she won't be getting any sand in her ears at the beach." She saw how things could work to our benefit. And that was really important for me growing up. But then I started to question the things that she would teach me. She would say, "Michaela, we're going to the cinema today, but we're using this special door for people who can't walk." And one day when she said this to me, I thought about it for a moment. And then I replied really simply, if this is the door for people who can't walk, where's the door for people with no ears? We knock around it too, but I think it illustrates really well how absurd it is that anyone should have to use a different door because they can't walk. My wheelchair does for me the same thing that your shoes do for you. And it's not a negative thing. Activism is about wanting to see the world being inclusive, for me to be able to navigate the world in the same way that a non-disabled person does. Disability is human-made, a human construct, built by the way we have made our society work. It's built by the way we construct our buildings too. I am coming to you today from a different spot in the same room, because unfortunately, the stage is not accessible to me. So what do I do about it? I can either not be here today, not be heard, or I can bring the stage to me. A bit like the special door, which even now, 30 years on, I still use in that same cinema. I have to be in the places where people will feel uncomfortable. Because if I don't show up, if I'm not present and visible, then things will never change. We know so much about advocates of history. Many of my inspirations come from the civil rights movement, where people wanted to choose their seat. I simply want to be able to get through the door. Disability rights is a long way to go, but this is a really big part of it. Disability rights don't take away from other people's rights, they add to them. Accessibility for me should mean accessibility for all. Martina passed away in 1997. She was far too young to pass away with a life that she wanted to live. She knew how to make an opportunity out of thin air. Martina spent her last 3 summers on this planet in professional stage plays in Belfast, in a theatre that was supported by a creative director who had the open mind and vision to see her potential. Not only did he see her potential, but he saw the benefit for other cast members too. He made sure that they adjusted to the disability as much as Martina had to adjust as well. They learned from each other, and it was a mutually beneficial partnership. And that's what true inclusion should always look like. And so with that in mind, I'm here in my adult life, and I keep Martina's spirit with me. And most of the time, that means I rock the boat a bit. I'm not afraid to stand here in a different spot and say, I am going to be heard. I'm not afraid to show up and sit somewhere really awkward, because I'm not awkward about it. I still get to do things I love. But hopefully, eventually, things start to change when people like me do that. Because then, when disabled people are there, we realize inclusion really matters. Not just to the disabled people, but to everybody. If I didn't do that, I reflect on what my life might look like. And it's really simple. It would just be an existence. And I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry, because I refuse to simply exist. I'm here to live a life, whatever that life might look like. Part of my work and part of my daily life is looking at quality of life. Every 6 months I come on a quality of life survey. And I have to think, how can we compare my quality of life to some arbitrary notion of what it might be for other people? Life is what you make of it, not what someone else says it should be. And that is the key. But there's one other piece to the puzzle. It's not just about how I approach my life, about me ensuring that I have the legal protections that I deserve. It's also about non-disabled people. Non-disabled people have an equal stake in this, because like I said before, what's accessible to me is accessible to everybody. Let's reflect back on the things that my mother and father were told I would never do. Talk, learn to drive, go to school. They all turned out to be false. I drive with no steering wheel. I did a master's at university. I work part-time as a deputy CEO. These things are not impossible, but they would be impossible without the help of non-disabled people. Non-disabled people who see that my worth in society is real. So, what can non-disabled people do? Because not all of us are in a position of power. It's really simple. Start following people on social media who aren't like you. Follow people who are disabled or part of another minority group. Listen to them and share their voice. because without that amplification, our voices are drowning. If you are in a position of power, I'm really interested to speak to you. Because too often, people in power don't listen to disabled voices. They listen to consultants with fancy letters after their name, rather than listening to the lived experience. There is no substitute in this world for the real lived experience of anybody. It doesn't matter what minority group you belong to, you should always be listened to. And that brings me back to something that I come back to time and time again. What is my life worth as a disabled person? I think we all ask ourselves that a lot. But here's the simple thing. All lives are unconditionally worthy. Disabled lives are unconditionally worthy. Life is what we make of it. If it means we get out of bed in the morning and we like to watch the birds fly past the window, and you're happy with that, then that is enough. If, like me, you want to jet set around the world and maybe visit a few more countries, that's okay too. Life really is what you make of it, and it's up to us to make it work for us. Disabled people too often bear the burden of making our lives work. I want to see non-disabled people standing with us, side by side, working with us to make it work. Because ultimately, this world will be a better place when disabled people are no longer excluded from the places that they belong. So, continue to demand your space. Continue to assert your worth. And remember that no matter what happens in life, we can all really make it count if we believe in ourselves and go and make it happen. Thank you.